The next morning, Akin's father called Akin again, this time with Akin's mother by his side. She tried to speak softly, to reason with her son, but Akin's mind was made up. I will not marry a primary school child just to please you. Sarah is not a prostitute. She will bear me children, he said, his voice steady. Sarah listened from Akin's room. Once upon a time, in a distant village in Nigeria where early marriages and unions with older men were celebrated, there lived a man named Atangana. He was renowned in the community for his industrious nature and formidable household, which consisted of his 6 wives and 30 children. His numerous farmlands and poultry businesses provided the substantial income necessary to sustain his large family. His first wife, Helen, bore him only one child, Akin, after which she was unable to conceive again. Akin became a source of great joy for Helen, whom she showered with love and attention. Mr. Atangana, raised in the heart of African traditions, believed that his lineage should continue to expand. Consequently, after Helen's inability to have more children, he began to marry additional wives, each bringing new vigor and responsibilities to his household. But despite the constant additions, he maintained a well-organized home, where harmony and respect were paramount. In the village of Bali, a man's strength and status were often measured by the number of wives he had and his ability to maintain peace within his home. And he was highly regarded because his household exemplified these values. His 6 wives lived like sisters, and their children interacted like siblings born from same mother. The absence of strife among them was a testament to his firm, albeit sometimes harsh, leadership. He was known for his quick temper and quick decisions-making, rarely reconsidering his choices. His first wife Helen, despite her inability to bear more children, remained the most favored wife because of her son Akin's brilliance and potential. From a young age, Akin exhibited remarkable intelligence and curiosity, traits that endeared him to his father. His father was determined to provide him with the best education possible, hoping that his eldest son would one day elevate the family's status and support his many siblings. Akin's journey through school was nothing short of impressive. Always achieving top marks, earning the admiration from his teachers and the pride of his family. His academic excellence did not go unnoticed in the village. The village chief, recognizing Akin's potential, decided to offer him a scholarship to further his studies in the city. This opportunity was a significant honor, not only for Akin but for the entire household. One evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, the village chief paid a visit to Atangana's home. The chief, a dignified man with an air of wisdom, was accompanied by a few elders. The entire household stood in respectful silence as the chief spoke. Atangana, the chief began, his voice resonating with authority, I have come to discuss the future of your son, Akin. His exceptional performance in school has impressed us all, and it is clear that he has the potential to achieve great things. Therefore, we have decided to award him a scholarship to study in the city. This is a rare opportunity, and I trust that you will support him in this endeavor. Akin's father's stern face softened as he listened. He glanced at Akin, who stood beside his mother Helen, his eyes wide with anticipation and excitement. Her heart swelled with pride, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. She knew that this was the opportunity her son Akin had been waiting for, a chance to make something of himself and, in turn, elevate their entire family. The room was silent for a moment, then his father nodded solemnly. My king, your words honor us. Akin is my firstborn, and I have always believed in his potential. This scholarship is a blessing. He will go to the city and make us all proud. The chief smiled, pleased with his response. Very well then. Akin, prepare yourself for a new chapter in your life. The journey ahead will be challenging, but I have no doubt that you will succeed. The king said, looking at him with pride and hopes in his eyes. Akin's heart raced with excitement and a hint of nervousness. He had always dreamed of the city, with its promises of endless opportunities and new experiences. After the chief and the elders left, the household buzzed with excitement. The wives chatted animatedly, discussing Akin's future and the preparations needed for his departure. Mr. Atangana, ever the disciplinarian, called his son Akin aside for a private conversation. Akin, he began, his tone serious, this scholarship is not just about your education. It is a responsibility. You carry the hopes and dreams of our entire family with you. Remember our values and the teachings of our ancestors. Work hard, stay focused, and never forget where you come from. Akin nodded, absorbing his father's words. I understand, father. I will do my best to honor our family and make you proud. His father nodded. I must tell you this, Akin. The city is made of so many bad ladies with no wombs. I have not been there before, but I have heard about them. They are all prostitutes looking for a man to attract money from. You have to be wise. You will pick a bride from the village who is going to bear you many children just like I have done. Akin, although hesitant, nodded his head. As the days passed, the family prepared for Akin's departure. Helen, though filled with a mixture of pride and sorrow, busied herself with packing her son's belongings and offering him advice for life in the city. The king returned to the palace, his mind preoccupied with thoughts of Akin. He saw in him a young man capable of bringing significant change to their community. As he mulled over these thoughts, an idea began to form. Perhaps Akin, after completing his studies in the city, could marry his youngest daughter, Ada. Akin was strikingly handsome with muscles like coiled springs. His humility and peaceful demeanor set him apart, making it clear he had no intention of following in his father's footsteps, a trait that endeared him to all the mothers in the village. They dreamed of the day he might choose their daughter as his 8th or 9th wife, once his education was complete. The news of Akin's scholarship spread rapidly through the village, igniting a frenzy among the young female children who could hardly contain their excitement as they adorned themselves with the finest drawings on their faces, accentuating their extraordinary beauty, and made daily visits to Helen's hut. Their intention was clear: they wanted to impress Akin's mother and show their willingness to marry him by helping with the kitchen work and household chores. However, Helen, ever mindful of the importance of education, would shoo them away. Go to school, she would say, her tone firm but kind. Akin would not like to see you here instead of pursuing your studies. Despite their initial disappointment, they returned each morning, their resolve unwavering. On the eve of Akin's departure for the city, Helen felt a mix of pride and apprehension. That evening, she called Akin to sit with her outside their hut, the night air cool and filled with the sounds of the village settling down. The flickering light from their small fire cast shadows on their faces as she began to speak, her voice tinged with emotion. Akin, she started, her eyes filled with love and concern, you are the light of my life. The reason your father still favors me, even with his other wives. You must know how proud I am of you. Akin nodded, listening intently. He had heard these words many times before but knew they came from the deepest part of his mother's heart. You are going to the city to study, and you must focus on that, she continued, her voice growing more urgent. I want you back by my side as soon as you finish. If I hear anything negative about you, I will die, Akin. I will kill myself. The city is full of bad people. You have to be careful and stay away from city girls. Your father and I want you to return and choose a bride from the village who will bear you many children. Akin frowned slightly, sensing the intensity of his mother's fears. Mother, he said, trying to reassure her, you don't need to worry. I will be careful. And as for marriage, I will choose my wife when the time is right. Helen's eyes searched Akin's face for reassurance. You can get married to as many wives as you want, just like your father. I have no objection. But Akin's expression remained unchanged. I will marry any woman of my choice. I want just one wife and I don't need you worrying about that. If I find a girl in this village, I will marry her. With that, he stood up, indicating the end of their conversation, and retired to his hut. Helen sat alone, her heart gripped with fear. Akin was so much like his father. He not only resembled him physically but also inherited his father's unwavering decision-making. She prayed fervently that her son would return and fulfill the wishes of his family. The night before his departure, the village gathered to bid Akin farewell. The men shared stories of their own adventures in the city, offering advice and encouragement, while the women prepared a feast. Helen, though proud, could not shake the unease that gripped her heart. As she watched Akin interact with the villagers, she marveled at his maturity and the respect he commanded even at such a young age. The following morning, the village was abuzz with excitement. The young women, once again adorned in their finest, lined the path to Helen's hut, hoping for a final moment with Akin. As he stepped out, dressed in his best clothes, the crowd cheered, their pride and hopes riding with him. Helen embraced him tightly, her tears betraying the strong facade she tried to maintain. "Remember everything I have told you, my son. Be wise and stay true to yourself." "I will, mother," Akin replied, his voice steady. "I promise to make you proud." As the bus arrived to take him to the city, the villagers gathered around, offering final words of encouragement and blessings. As the bus rumbled away, carrying Akin towards his future, the village slowly returned to its routine, though an air of anticipation lingered. Everyone knew that Akin's success could bring great honor to their community. Years passed, and Akin soon completed his university studies with a bachelor's degree. Determined to further his education to a PhD, he decided to support himself by getting a job instead of asking for money from his parents back home. His efforts paid off when he was accepted to teach in a government secondary school in Delta State. There, he taught students preparing for their final exams to enter the university. While balancing his master's studies with his teaching duties, Akin quickly became a beloved figure at the school. His brilliance and understanding of the students' struggles made him an exceptional teacher. He spoke to them not as an authoritative figure, but as a peer, fostering an environment of mutual respect and admiration. His students thrived under his guidance, consistently scoring good grades. He commanded their respect not through force, but through his genuine care and wisdom. Among these students was a girl named Sarah, who was unlike any other. She sat at the front desk, always respectful and polite, exuding a quiet grace that set her apart. While other students eagerly ran to him with questions they already knew the answers to, she remained calm and reserved. Her demeanor often led Akin to wonder if she was too shy to participate or perhaps not confident in her abilities. But over time, he began to see a different side of her. Sarah was not only brilliant but also humble. She had the answers to many questions but chose to remain quiet, never seeking attention or recognition. And as the days passed, Akin found his thoughts increasingly occupied by his calm, gentle student. Her uniqueness was undeniable. She was gentle and kind, particularly with the younger students. He often caught sight of her smiling or laughing with them, her eyes twinkling with warmth and kindness. She assisted the junior students with such patience and dedication that he couldn't help but admire her. One day, while marking her test paper, Akin was once again struck by her intelligence. Her answers were thoughtful and precise, reflecting a depth of understanding that was rare. He realized how much he looked forward to seeing her each day, hoping for the moment when she might approach him like the others did. But Sarah remained in the background, her brilliance quietly shining through. In the days that followed, Akin observed her more closely. During her free time, she would volunteer to teach the junior classes. The younger students adored her, flocking to her with their assignments, eager for her guidance. She was selfless, never thinking about the fact that she too had exams to prepare for. Instead, she focused on helping others, ensuring they understood their lessons. Akin's heart melted as he watched her from the window before entering his classroom. The junior students would scatter when they saw him, knowing it was time for their lessons. For the first time, Akin began to call on Sarah during class. Her initial shock and confusion at hearing her name from his mouth soon gave way to confidence as he persisted in involving her. He made it his mission to help her get used to hearing his voice, to draw her out of her shell. Back in the village, Akin's return was eagerly anticipated. The villagers hoped he might choose a wife from among their daughters. But Akin's thoughts were far from marriage at that time. He had bought a cell phone for his parents to make communication easier, and he regularly sent money home to support his many siblings' education. His father was immensely proud, often boasting to friends about his successful son. One night, as Akin lay in bed, he found himself thinking of Sarah again. Her gentle nature, her intelligence, and her humility made her stand out. He looked forward to seeing her face the next morning, to the quiet interactions that had become the highlight of his days. He could no longer hold himself back from talking to her. Thoughts swirled in his mind, telling him that she might be the woman for him. Maybe not now, but after her studies. He pondered these thoughts, momentarily forgetting his parents and the village's expectations of him, returning to pick a wife from among them. One evening, as he was preparing exams for his students in the staff room, he realized he had left his economics book home. So he decided to check the classroom, although it was already 6 p.m., and he doubted anyone would still be there. As he walked through the quiet corridors, he decided to take his time, enjoying the peace of the empty school. When he reached the classroom, his eyes caught sight of a figure that had been clouding his mind, Sarah. She was asleep on a desk, with a book under her head and a small pool of saliva forming beside her mouth. Akin couldn't understand why he found her adorable in that state. He stood there, gently admiring her peaceful face and looking at her delicate fingers. After a few minutes of quiet observation, he gently tapped her shoulder to wake her from her slumber. Sarah opened her eyes wide, looking startled as if she had seen a ghost. Akin softly pointed out the saliva on the desk and offered her a tissue to clean herself. Embarrassed, she took the tissue, avoiding eye contact. Akin explained that he had come for an economics book and hadn't expected to find anyone in the classroom. Hearing his request, she immediately offered him her book, hastily packing her own things into her bag. Her hurried movements and the seriousness of her demeanor made Akin chuckle. He could see she was feeling shy and embarrassed. "It's just saliva," he said gently, trying to calm her nerves. "It happens when you're really tired or when your head is in a certain position while you sleep." But despite his reassurance, Sarah still felt a wave of embarrassment. Sensing this, Akin decided to share something personal to lighten the mood. "I snore in my sleep," he confessed with a playful smile. She looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Yes," Akin insisted, "I'm not lying." She laughed, the tension easing from her shoulders. "I don't believe you," she said, her embarrassment giving way to amusement. Akin laughed along with her. As he flipped through the book she had given him, he found the information he needed. "I am a student just like you," he said, making Sarah roll her eyes at him. This was not the first time she heard him saying that. He always told them he was a student just like they were, but no one knew where he was schooling or what he was studying. Akin smiled more on seeing her rolling her white enchanting eyes. "I am a master's student, so if I'm not here teaching then I'm at the university studying. Just like you, I easily get stressed out with studies too." Sarah nodded her head, gently understanding his words. "Studying and working must be really difficult. So I guess you stress even more than we do." Akin nodded his head, looking intensely at her with a smile on his face. They continued to chat in the quiet classroom, the initial awkwardness dissolving into a comfortable conversation. "Thank you for the book," Akin said, genuinely grateful. "You're welcome," Sarah replied, her smile brightening the room. Akin realized how much he enjoyed these moments with her. She was more than just a brilliant student, she was kind, humble, and genuinely endearing. As they talked, he found himself wishing for more opportunities like this, to get to know her better. Eventually, it was time for Sarah to go home. She gathered her things, her earlier embarrassment completely gone. She waved goodbye with a smile, happy to have shared a light-hearted moment with her teacher. Akin watched her leave, his heart feeling lighter than it had in a long time. As he walked back to the staff room, he couldn't stop thinking about her. She had a way of making even the simplest interactions feel special. He hoped there would be more chances to talk with her, to see her smile, and to share these small, yet meaningful moments. In the days leading up to the final exams, the atmosphere at school grew tense as students immersed themselves in their studies, leaving little room for personal interactions. Akin, aware of the importance of this period, chose to speak rarely with Sarah. He was concerned that any distraction might hinder her progress. Although he often saw her assisting the junior students or staying back late to study, he refrained from approaching her. It wasn't fear that held him back but a concern that his growing feelings might become too evident, causing her to withdraw and lose focus. Sarah noticed Akin's sudden distance, and it troubled her deeply. She often found herself wondering why he was avoiding her, but as she pondered it, she realized that they had never been friends outside the classroom. She had no right to question his behavior, yet the ache in her heart persisted. As the final week of exams arrived, the students finished their last subjects and the air buzzed with excitement about the future. Akin knew it was now or never to confess his feelings to Sarah. He feared that if he waited too long, someone else might capture her interest. With determination, he sought her out. He found her walking away from the school with a group of friends, laughter and excitement filling the air. He waited patiently for her to separate from her friends before approaching her. Taking a deep breath, he approached her, his heart pounding. "Sarah, can I speak with you for a moment?" he asked, his voice steady but his eyes betraying his nervousness. She looked up, startled to see him. "Of course, Mr. Akin." They both walked to the direction to Sarah's house as they spoke. Sarah's heart raced, a mixture of anticipation and confusion swirling within her. "How did the exams go?" Akin asked, trying to ease into the conversation. "They went well," she replied confidently, though she couldn't hide her curiosity about why he wanted to talk to her alone. "I've been waiting for you to finish talking to your friends," Akin admitted, "because there's something important I need to tell you." Sarah's curiosity deepened. "What is it?" Akin took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "I won't be teaching here anymore." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Why not?" "I'm graduating with my master's degree next week, and I've already secured a job," he explained. "Oh, congratulations," she exclaimed, genuinely happy for him, though confusion still lingered in her eyes. "But why are you telling me this?" Akin looked directly into her eyes, his expression serious. "Our relationship as teacher and student has meant a lot to me. But I don't want it to end there." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected him to say something like this. "What do you mean?" "I've had feelings for you for months," Akin confessed, his voice trembling slightly. "But I couldn't tell you because I didn't want to distract you from your studies." She felt a rush of emotions. She had dreamt of being with him, but never imagined he felt the same way. Understanding dawned on her. His distance was because he feared his feelings would be a distraction. A shy smile tugged at her lips. "I've liked you too, Mr. Akin." His heart soared at her words, but she quickly added, "But it feels strange to think about us being in a relationship, given our roles." "I understand," Akin said, his voice filled with earnestness. "But now that the exams are over and I'm leaving the school, I couldn't wait any longer to tell you. I promise to love and cherish you, no matter what." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. She couldn't believe this moment was real. Akin's sincerity touched her deeply, and she felt a profound sense of relief and joy. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Akin reassured her. "Just know that I care for you deeply and want to be with you." She smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with happiness. "I want to be with you too." Akin felt a wave of relief wash over him. He gently took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "Thank you, Sarah." As they walked together, hand in hand towards her home, Akin and Sarah talked about their hopes and dreams. They exchanged phone numbers, promising to stay in touch despite the changes that lay ahead. When they reached Sarah's house, Akin hesitated for a moment, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. He knew this was an important step. "May I greet your parents?" he asked. Sarah nodded, her smile encouraging him. "Of course." They walked up to the door, and she introduced Akin to her parents. Her mother, a kind woman with a warm smile, welcomed him inside. Her father, though initially reserved, soon warmed up as Akin spoke about his plans and how much he admired Sarah's dedication and intelligence. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Okafor," Akin said respectfully. "Sarah has been an outstanding student, and I wanted to express my gratitude for all her hard work and dedication." Her parents exchanged a glance, clearly proud of their daughter. "Thank you, Akin," her father said. "We appreciate your kind words." After a brief conversation, Akin excused himself, feeling that it was time to leave. As he walked to the door, he turned to Sarah and said, "I'll call you later." Sarah nodded, a shy smile playing on her lips. "I'll be waiting." That night, Akin lay in bed, replaying their conversation over and over in his mind. He felt a mix of relief and excitement, knowing that Sarah shared his feelings. Meanwhile, Sarah lay in her room, a smile never leaving her face as she thought about their future together. In the days that followed, their bond grew stronger. They met whenever they could, cherishing each moment together. Years flew by with Akin building a successful life in the city, while always remaining connected to his beloved village. His hard work and dedication paid off as he secured a prestigious job at a prominent company. Despite living in the city, Akin contributed significantly to the development of his village. He built a clinic to ensure that the children received vaccinations regularly, and he established 2 schools to provide better educational opportunities for the community. Akin's father, Mr. Atangana, was immensely proud of his son's achievements, yet a growing worry gnawed at him regarding Akin's future. He wanted Akin to return to the village and marry Ola, a young girl from a respected family who was intelligent and in her final year of primary school. He believed that Ola would make a suitable wife for Akin and hoped that with time, Akin would marry more women and father many children, thereby fulfilling the village's expectations. Unbeknownst to him, Akin's thoughts and desires were far removed from these traditional expectations. Every morning, Akin's father climbed the mountain to offer sacrifices to the village gods, praying that they would guide Akin back home and keep him away from the city women. His hopes were firmly set on Akin marrying Ola and continuing the family lineage according to village customs. Meanwhile, Sarah had completed her bachelor's degree and followed her passion for teaching, a dream she had nurtured since high school. After 3 years of a loving courtship, Akin expressed his desire to marry her. Overjoyed, Sarah accepted his proposal, confident in their readiness to embark on the next chapter of their journey together. Sarah's parents were delighted by Akin's proposal, recognizing him as a respectful and caring man who would be a wonderful husband to their daughter. In the weeks leading up to their visit to the village, Akin meticulously prepared Sarah for what to expect. One evening at Sarah's house, he recounted details about his village and family, ensuring she was well informed. She already knew about his large family, with 30 siblings initially, a number that had since grown to 45. Despite the daunting size of Akin's family, Sarah was excited and eager to meet them. The next day, Akin and Sarah went to the market to purchase gifts for his entire family. Her excitement was palpable. She could hardly contain her enthusiasm about meeting Akin's parents. She had heard so much about them and was eager to make a good impression. She thoughtfully selected thick blankets for the cold weather and clothes for Akin's 45 siblings, hoping they would appreciate her gestures. Akin, too, bought gifts for his friends in the village, ensuring he returned home bearing tokens of his appreciation and success. He was aware of the expectations that awaited him but felt confident with Sarah by his side. As they walked through the bustling market, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the thought of finally meeting the people who had shaped the man she loved. Her heart swelled with anticipation and a touch of nervousness. "Do you think they'll like the gifts?" she asked Akin, holding up a brightly colored blanket. "They will love them," Akin reassured her with a smile. "You've put so much thought into everything. They will see how much you care." Sarah nodded, her excitement mixed with a hint of apprehension. "I just want them to accept me. I've heard so much about your family, and I want to be a part of it." "You already are a part of my life, Sarah," Akin said softly. "My family will see that too. They'll see how much you mean to me." The journey to the village was filled with conversations and laughter as Akin shared more stories from his childhood, making Sarah feel even more connected to his roots. The road was long, but their shared excitement made it feel shorter. As they neared the village, Akin's thoughts drifted to his father's expectations. He knew he would have to face them head-on and stand firm in his choice. With Sarah beside him, he felt a renewed strength to confront any challenges that lay ahead. When they finally arrived, the village welcomed them warmly. Children ran alongside their car, excitedly pointing and shouting greetings. Akin's heart swelled with pride as he saw the improvements he had helped bring to his home. Sarah took in the sights with wide eyes, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She spotted Akin's family house and saw Mr. Atangana standing outside, waiting. She took a deep breath and smiled at Akin. "Ready?" he asked, taking her hand. "Ready," she replied, squeezing his hand tightly. They stepped out of the car, and Akin led Sarah towards his father. Akin's father's eyes were sharp, taking in every detail of the woman beside his son. As Sarah and Akin approached him, they both knelt in a gesture of respect. He paid little attention to the woman standing beside his son, focusing instead on questioning Akin in their native language. "Who is this woman?" he demanded, his tone harsh and suspicious. Akin gathered his courage and replied, "Father, this is Sarah, the woman I plan to marry." Sarah, unable to understand the conversation, felt a wave of confusion as people began to gather around them. She heard her name mentioned by Akin, but the words were lost on her. She noticed Akin's father frown deepen as he glanced at her, then he abruptly invited Akin inside with a hurried and scornful voice. Akin refused to leave Sarah outside, taking her hand and leading her into the house. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Mr. Atangana's expression was one of anger and disappointment as he continued his conversation with Akin. The 6 wives, including Akin's mother, ran to embrace him, surprised to see the beautiful woman by his side. They whispered among themselves, casting curious glances at Sarah. "She is beautiful," one of the wives remarked, which Akin translated to Sarah, bringing a small, fleeting smile to her face. However, when Akin explained that Sarah was the woman he intended to marry, the atmosphere shifted. The smiles faded, replaced by looks of horror. The women began speaking in angry tones in their native language, and Sarah, though she could not understand them fully, heard the word prostitute repeatedly. Tears welled up in her eyes as she watched Akin's mother fall to the ground, crying bitterly and cursing her, making circular motions with her hands as if to ward off evil. Akin rushed to his mother, trying to console her. "She is not a prostitute," he insisted. "She is a good woman, a kind woman." But his mother continued to weep, refusing to listen. Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, feeling the weight of rejection and misunderstanding. Akin saw her pain and ran to her, embracing her tightly. "Don't cry," he whispered. "I love you, and nothing can change that." That night, the village was a place of quiet disappointment, murmurs of disapproval spreading among the villagers. In their room, Sarah cried bitterly, pleading with Akin to let her return to her parents. But Akin refused, his voice firm. "We will go together," he said. "No one is going to change my mind about you. I love you, and nothing, not my family, not traditions, will change that." She listened to his confident words, her heart slowly calming. She fell asleep with his arms around her, finding some comfort in his unwavering support. The next morning, Akin's father called Akin again, this time with Akin's mother by his side. She tried to speak softly, to reason with her son, but Akin's mind was made up. "I will not marry a primary school child just to please you. Sarah is not a prostitute. She will bear me children," he said, his voice steady. Sarah listened from Akin's room, her heart pounding with fear. She had never seen Akin raise his voice, but now he was speaking back to his father with a firmness she had not known he possessed. The pain in her heart grew, knowing she was the cause of their disagreement. In a final, desperate attempt, Akin suggested, "If you are so desperate to have Ola in the family, then make her your 7th wife." His words struck like a thunderclap, leaving his father momentarily speechless with rage. Mr. Atangana's face twisted with anger, but he could not find the words to respond. Akin, sensing the pleading look on Sarah's face, knew she wanted him to apologize, to mend the rift, but he could not. He took her hand and led her back to their room, where he began packing their belongings. "We are leaving," he explained, his voice filled with determination. "We are going back to the city immediately." Sarah watched him, her heart breaking at the sight of his resolute face. "Akin," she began, her voice trembling, "I don't want to be the cause of this. Maybe we should try to make peace," but Akin stopped her with a gentle touch. "Sarah, I love you. My decision is final. We cannot stay where we are not welcome." Tears streamed down her face as she realized the depth of Akin's commitment to her. Despite the pain, she nodded, trusting his judgment. They gathered their things quickly, and with heavy hearts, they prepared to leave the village behind. As they stepped out of the house, Akin's father stood in the doorway, his face a mask of unspoken words. Akin paused, looking back at his father one last time. "Goodbye, father," he said quietly. "I hope one day you will understand." With that, Akin and Sarah walked away, leaving behind the traditions and expectations that had tried to bind them. They drove back to the city in silence, each lost in their thoughts, but united in their resolve to face whatever came next together. As they left the village, Akin and Sarah felt the weight of the gifts they left behind, symbolic of the family acceptance they had hoped for but did not receive. An hour into the drive, Akin sensed Sarah's lingering hurt and confusion. He reached over, gently taking her hand. "Sarah," he began softly, "you are not a prostitute, no matter what my family thinks. My father expected me to marry a young girl from the village, someone who could bear many children, just like he did. But that is not the life I want." Sarah's eyes widened as she absorbed this information, understanding more clearly the source of Mr. Atangana's disappointment. "I just want 4 children," Akin continued, "like we decided. We can give them a better life, a life where they don't have to depend on others." Looking at Akin, Sarah felt clarity wash over her. She saw the man she had chosen to spend her life with, a man who understood her and shared her values. Akin reassured her, "My family will come around. Don't worry." When they arrived at Sarah's house, she collapsed at her mother's feet, tears streaming down her face as she recounted the events in the village. That night, Sarah's father called Akin into the sitting room to discuss his final decision. To his amazement, he saw how determined Akin was to marry his daughter, despite his family's opposition. "I am 27 years old," Akin stated firmly. "I can make my own decisions, and that includes marrying the woman I love." Sarah's father nodded, understanding the depth of Akin's commitment. "Your family will come around," he assured Akin. Akin went to Sarah's room to bid her goodnight before heading to his own house. In the weeks that followed, Akin and Sarah got married and moved into their home, living happily as Sarah soon became pregnant and gave birth to twin boys, a joyous occasion that brought immense happiness to both of them. Sarah's mother was there to help her daughter, providing the support she needed. Akin continued to sponsor his many siblings' education, regularly sending money back home for their upkeep. In the 3 years that passed without Akin visiting, his family only received gifts and money from him. His mother, Helen, began to miss her son deeply. Akin was the only fruit born from her womb. He was the source of her happiness. She soon realized that Sarah must be a good woman to allow Akin to continue supporting them despite the way they had treated her. She pleaded with her husband daily to go check on Akin, but Akin's father remained stubborn, convinced that Akin would suffer without any children because he had married a prostitute instead of the wife he had chosen for him. News from the young men who traveled to the city for studies under Akin's guidance eventually reached the village, describing Sarah's kindness and hospitality. They also shared news of her pregnancy, which sent shockwaves of regret through Helen's heart. One night, she packed her bag, determined to go see her son and apologize for not trusting his decision. The next morning, she was surprised to find her husband's bag already packed, ready to travel with her. They carried plantains and cocoyam, laughing at the thought of Akin eating food grown in the village after so long. Sarah, heavily pregnant again, picked up her 2 boys from school. Upon entering the house, she heard a knock at the door and wondered who it could be. When she opened the door, she was shocked to see the faces that had clouded her mind for all these years. Akin's parents were equally surprised to see her heavily pregnant and 2 boys who looked just like Akin running to her side. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she welcomed them in their native language, stunning Akin's parents. "You learn our language?" Akin's father said, surprise. "Yes, we wanted to feel more connected to Akin's roots, so he teaches us every night." Akin's father smiled gently at her. They soon made themselves comfortable, playing with their grandchildren. Sarah soon served them food at the dining table, and just then, her husband walked in with his children running to embrace him. He carried them both as he approached his parents, unable to utter a word. With tears in her eyes, Helen knelt before Akin, but he quickly held her up, preventing her from kneeling. "I forgave you long ago," he confessed softly. His father, swallowing his pride, spoke with a voice filled with remorse. "Akin, Sarah," he began, his voice trembling, "we were wrong. We judged you too quickly. We let our traditions and expectations blind us to who you truly are. We can see now that you are a kind and loving woman, and we are sorry for all the pain we caused you." Helen, wiping her tears, added, "Yes, we see now how wrong we were. You have shown us through your actions how much you care for Akin and our family. We are deeply sorry for the hurtful words and for not welcoming you with open arms." With tears still streaming down her face, she embraced Akin's parents. "Thank you," she whispered in their native language, her voice filled with emotion. "Your words mean so much to me. I only ever wanted to be a part of this family and to love Akin. Akin's parents expressed their joy about Sarah's pregnancy and the striking resemblance between Akin and his sons, which made Sarah blush shyly. As night fell, they both settled into their new surroundings, still regretting their past actions but hopeful for a future where love and understanding could bridge the gaps that tradition had once created. After the emotional reconciliation, Akin's parents settled into the rhythm of city life with their son's family. They both found joy in the everyday moments, playing with their grandchildren, watching Sarah cook delicious meals, and experiencing the warmth and love that filled the house. Helen marveled at Sarah's culinary skills, savoring every bite of the meals she prepared. "Sarah, your cooking is simply wonderful," Helen said one evening, her eyes twinkling with genuine appreciation. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of relief and happiness at finally being accepted. Akin's mother, in the days that follow, cooked all their traditional delicacy, promising to teach Sarah more in the future. While Akin's father spent his days bonding with his grandsons. He told them stories of the village, teaching them about their heritage and the importance of family. The boys listened with wide-eyed wonder, captivated by their grandfather's tales. He found himself laughing and playing like a child again, the years melting away in the presence of his energetic grandsons. The days flew by, filled with laughter, storytelling, and the deepening bond between Akin's parents and his family. One afternoon, they decided to visit Sarah's parents to apologize formally for their earlier behavior. Helen, holding Akin's hand for support, and also to translate their language to them, felt a mix of anxiety and determination as they approached Sarah's childhood home. Her parents greeted them warmly, though there was a hint of apprehension in their eyes. Helen stepped forward, her voice steady but emotional. "We have come to apologize for our actions. We were wrong to judge your daughter and to insult her. She has shown us nothing but kindness and love." With tears welling up in her eyes, embraced Akin's parents. "Thank you for coming. Your apologies means a lot to us and to Sarah. We only want the best for our children, and it warms our hearts to see this reconciliation." Sarah's father nodded, his eyes softening. "We are grateful for your words. Let us move forward together as one family." As they left, Akin's mother promised to return soon, especially before Sarah gave birth, eager to help her daughter-in-law with the new baby. "I can't wait to be here for you, Sarah. And when next I come, I will cook anything you want," she said, squeezing her hand. Sarah smiled more, hoping on learning more from her mother-in-law in the future. Akin's father requested a private talk with his son. They sat in the living room, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow around them. "Akin," his father began, his voice filled with pride and a hint of regret, "I want to thank you for everything you have done for our family. You have made me a proud father, and I have learned a lot from you." Akin listened intently, his heart swelling with emotion. "You have shown me the importance of love, respect, and standing by one's choices. I hope your siblings will follow in your footsteps and become as responsible and caring as you are." Akin felt a lump in his throat, moved by his father's words. "Thank you, father. It means a lot to hear you say that." When the time came for Helen and her husband to return to the village, there was a sense of joy and excitement, tempered by the promise of future visits. They left behind a family strengthened by love and mutual respect, eager to return and be part of their grandchildren's lives. Akin and Sarah stood at the door, waving as Helen and Mr. Atangana drove away. "They'll be back soon," Akin said, wrapping an arm around Sarah. "We're truly a family now." In the weeks that followed, Sarah prepared for the arrival of their new baby, her heart full of hope and anticipation. While Akin continued to manage his responsibilities, balancing work, family, and his commitment to his siblings' education. The connection between the village and the city grew stronger, with Akin guiding young men from the village in their studies. And this brings us to the end of our story. The moral lesson of the story is that love, respect, and forgiveness are essential in overcoming prejudice and fostering strong family bonds. Akin's unwavering support for Sarah, despite his family's initial disapproval, highlights the importance of making decisions based on genuine love rather than societal expectations. The story also underscores the healing power of forgiveness, as both Akin and Sarah embrace his parents despite their past actions. Ultimately, Open communication and understanding are key to resolving misunderstandings and building a harmonious family. Thank you for watching our story. If you enjoyed it so far, please consider subscribing to our channel and leaving us your thoughts. It will serve as an encouragement to us. See you in our next story.